The January 22nd meeting, the City of Lawrence Redevelopment Commission is called to order. A quorum is present. Commissioners Blunt, Brown, Clifford, Hicks, Kimberly, and non-voting member Dick Ferigi. We would welcome our regular attendees, Trace and Chris. Thanks for being here. Before proceeding with the agenda, let us have a special welcome for Allie Brown to the board. I know I speak for all the board members when I say we look forward to working with you, Allie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our first order of business is the election of officers, president, vice president, and secretary. I will ask for nominations for president, and I would like to make a nomination for president. And I would like to nominate David Blunt as president of the RDC. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brian Hicks. All those in favor of David Blunt? That's a unanimous vote. Next, we have the vice president of the RDC. May I have a nomination, please?
I'll nominate Brian.
I will second that nomination. May I have a show of hands in support of the nomination? Second. Thank you. It's unanimous. And lastly, secretary. Do I have a nomination for secretary? And I would like to nominate Bruce Kimmerly, continuing the tradition that we've set for several years. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And all those in favor, please, by show of hands. That's also unanimous. I would ask that David Blunt assume this seat. David. Vice script, such as it is. I'll keep that one later.
Likes it. Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Well, don't look so happy.
Alrighty, so next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the December 4th meeting. Has all the commissioners reviewed the minutes and any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Approved by
Bruce? Okay, thank you. Did we get a vote?
all in favor?
Perfect.
Unanimous. All right, next on the agenda is the approval of claims and purchase orders. Today we have two vouchers totaling $9,515. Cam, please comment on the transactions.
Sure, happy to. I think all that you'll see on the claims and vouchers for this month for approval are related to my fee for serving as director of the commission. This represents sort of 3-month catch-up period, I think, by the time invoices come out and to get them approved and on the claims agenda, sometimes there's some delay. So it's the amount is the same. It's $28.05 a month. Under the flat fee arrangement, this is just 3 months of that, and then there's a small amount on the additional matter related to the Trades District project and Shadeland Avenue projects that are under the additional matter that was previously approved. So I think this is that is the total of the claims this time.
The commissioners have heard Mr. Starnes, and we thank him for management of these activities. Are there any further questions?
What is the, excuse me. Do we have more of an explanation of what the $1,100 is?
Sure. That's related to, if you'll recall, the Redevelopment Commission approved an additional matter engagement where I am working under a a separate engagement related to the Trades District project for 7600 Pendleton Pike and disposition of 4423 North Shayland as a specific project that is separate and apart from the flat annual fee for management and staff services. So that is the GN 002 matter is simply billed differently because it's a specific project.
And do you remember what we approved totally for that project?
Yeah, that's,
No matter.
so that will count against the total not to exceed of $30,000 for, I think, both of those, to get through both of those projects.
Thank you.
Any other further questions, discussions? All right, may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Do you have a second? All right, and all? Unanimous. Next is the staff report. Mr. Starnes, can you give us a rundown, starting with Meyer Plastic?
I'd be glad to. First, again, from my perspective as the director of the staff, welcome to Ally, our new commissioner. We're very glad to have you. I think we had greatly enjoyed having Frank Sullivan on the commission for the last 3 years, and we'll miss him, but glad that we've got a fresh face here and somebody who will help us continue the work of the commission. I'd also like to thank, personally and on behalf of the city, I'd like to thank Jerry for his leadership serving as president of the Redevelopment Commission for the last 3 years. I think we've all benefited greatly from not only his tireless service to the community that he takes very seriously, but also his leadership and his organizational approach to running the commission. And so I've learned a lot through that, and I think we all have. So thank you to Jerry for your service there. And thank you to all of you for serving on the commission for another term. Welcome to David as president. We'll look forward to that. First, Meyer Plastics. I hope and trust that you go by there once in a while. They've made great progress in a great hurry. They really, I guess, meant it when they wanted to get into the ground yet last year. So we look forward to that. Seems to be on schedule from the latest word from the construction folks to open in 2020. I wanted to update you more particularly, the Redevelopment Commission is continuing to work through closing out the environmental side of that property through to a no further action letter. We did have some groundwater sampling that occurred late last year that confirmed that we do have some continued impacts that are not currently posing a threat to Meyer's development, but will result in the need for some continued monitoring as we had expected. We have made contact with the neighboring landowner to the west. There are some wells on that property that are sampled at regular intervals. We have now squared away an access agreement for the RDC. The prior owner of the Meyer site had an access agreement for that, so now we have one to allow that to continue. We'd anticipate there may be some level of what are called institutional controls that would limit prospective future use of that property in terms of production of the groundwater, which would violate zoning anyway. But we'll work that out, and the monitoring will continue. There were a couple of wells that were damaged or destroyed in the construction process on the Meyer site, which Browning, as the contractor for Meyer Plastics, will be replacing and repairing. And as soon as those are in place, at its expense, as soon as those are in place, the next quarter of sampling will occur, and we'll continue on the schedule to satisfy the requirements to get to closure. So that is proceeding. I wanted you all to be aware of that, even as the building goes up vertically. Any questions about Meyer Plastics?
Is Meyer Plastics running off wells, or are they on city water?
No, they'll be on city water. These wells are for monitoring of groundwater, which is impacted through some chemical constituents related to prior ownership well before the last folks. I think it had been a munitions factory or something of that sort decades ago. There's some impacts to the groundwater. That groundwater is not used for drinking water for the city. There aren't any production wells there for that reason, so it's literally just 15 feet below grade, just flowing at groundwater, and that's their wells to monitor levels in that. So those are the wells I refer to. Speaking of environmental matters, sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
Am I to understand then that the exposure that we had to the environmentals, has that been mitigated now? Is it gone?
It's not gone, but we knew there would be a process to get to closure, and it's proceeding, sort of proceeding on schedule in that regard. We will have to do several quarters of groundwater monitoring to show kind of natural attenuation over time in order to get the letter from IDEM that says you're done. But we knew that would take several quarters, and I think we're still on track, especially once as soon as those wells are reconstructed, we'll do the next quarter of sampling.
Thank you.
So I think it's as anticipated apart from that. Anything else on Meyer Plastics? Good. Then speaking of environmental matters, we did have, as you'll recall, the Redevelopment Commission administered an EPA assessment grant over the last, I think it started in 2015. We closed it out at the end of 2018, having spent the grant proceeds to accomplish environmental investigations in various sites throughout the city. I wanted to point out to you that we managed to use that grant very well. We spent EPA grant money to accomplish environmental assessment of some important sites, Meyer being one of them, Mission Mechanical is another, the police station site, the Shadeland Avenue site. We were able to get some good leverage out of those projects. I think Meyer and Mission alone will result in a net positive capital investment in the city of total around $13 to $15 million. So the several thousand in EPA grant proceeds we spent to help that happen, I think is something we can feel good about and something that looks really good to the EPA. To wit, we are applying for a new round of EPA assessment grant funding. It's a favorable grant because there's not a local match, so all of the work done under it is completely funded by the grant, if you'll recall, just like the last one. And it can be a very good tool for redevelopment because it allows for accomplishment of environmental investigation and achievement of things like we applied for under the grant and got a comfort letter for Mission Mechanical that allowed Mission Mechanical to proceed with its project there at the former permanent magnet without environmental unknowns hanging over its head. So we've seen it have a lot of value, and we will be asking the EPA for more money in that regard. And they've expanded that program. I think the local, the Indiana delegation, Joel Markland, the president of BCA that ran the prior grant for us, has met with all of them, and they all, I think, see the value in the assessment grant program through EPA and are committed, at least on the Indiana representation side, to seeing it continue to be funded. So Lawrence is not alone in showing a lot of good leverage out of those grant dollars in terms of private investment on the backside of it. So that application, and the question will be, what does the shutdown mean in terms of this timeline? But the application will be due end of January, and is coming together just on the back of how Lawrence did with the prior grant, so pretty smoothly so far. And we'll probably hear about awards in March or April, and be able to have proceeds under a cooperative agreement with the EPA and ready to use in late fall of 19, again, pending delay due to shutdown. Questions about that? Wanted to mention then next, because we've talked about it a little bit, but also because it may have an impact on some property that we added to the allocation area. The Metropolitan School District of Lawrence Township is planning a new and expanded transportation facility to better serve students and transportation needs and operations needs district-wide. And I don't know that they've committed in point of fact, and Commissioner Friege could correct me if I'm wrong, but they are considering a site that is on 52nd Street, just west of German Church or Sunnyside Road, in an area that the Redevelopment Commission a couple of years ago added to the Pendleton Pike allocation area. So we added that land to the TIF. Thank you, Jerry.
52nd Street in Hoyle.
German Church, yes. South of the current Poindexter Industrial Park, there's some farmland there that we had added under the thought that it might be redeveloped into commercial or industrial development. I think there's a section of that that has proven attractive to the school corporation for their new transportation facility to accommodate bus parking and service and various other aspects of operation, which, I think we can celebrate the fact that there's some good forward thinking about continuing to serve the students in Lawrence Township well for years to come with this new facility. I do think it will be something that we should consider removing from the allocation area. It's currently unimproved, but it is privately owned land that was added at a certain base value. And once, if and when the school corporation were to buy it and use it as a transportation facility, it would effectively, or literally, take it off of the tax rolls and thereby create negative increment in the allocation area. So I think we'll need to keep up to speed on the footprint of that and a way to define that area so that we can do sort of a removal of that from the TIF, which would follow the same three-part process that it took to add it, which is it starts with the Redevelopment Commission and a declaratory resolution that it seeks to amend the boundaries. It would take council approval and then a confirmatory resolution.
How late would be, we're going to monitor it, see if it progresses, but how late would be our drop dead date to remove it, to start that process?
The assessment will roll back to the first of the year. So I think as long as we do that by the end of this year, then regardless of the timeline for the actual acquisition by the school and the next assessment, which would then be essentially zeroed out because it's a public use, we would avoid having that negative impact. So I think that would be the timeline. Might as well do it sooner than later, as long as and as soon as we're sure that we can define that area that we'll need to remove. Jerry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear when you listed the location.
Yes.
I couldn't hear you.
It's on 52nd Street near just west of German Church, Sunnyside Road there, south of Poindexter's industrial park there. In fact, I think Billy Poindexter owns the land currently, and had planned an expansion of his industrial park, which is partly why we added it to the TIF. It seems to suit the school corporation's needs well, but we'll want to not create negative increments. We may need to remove it.
This is coming out of left field, this next question. Is the new transportation facility in any way tied to trade's capability? Expansion of a program at Mackenzie or something like that?
And I may defer to Commissioner Frigie on that. I don't know that it is.
That would be great, because Dick, you're also in the process, if I'm understanding it correctly. You have some labs of various types in the schools that need to be updated. They haven't been updated in over 20 years.
Right, that's correct. So on this transportation facility, the existing facility we have just is inadequate from a space standpoint as the township's growing. Servicing the vehicles, even parking the vehicles, and the fact that there's only one in and out all creates some issues for us. So this new potential purchase will alleviate all those problems, space and capabilities. So
it's not related to educational programming at all, then?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the only thing I could see, and this is just Frigie talking,
Sure.
not anything that I know that's on the table or not, it's just certain skill sets on servicing, the buses and all that. That could be some sort of thing that would involve, students from Mackenzie down the road. But I don't know of anything that's on the table with respect to that.
Just looking for a way for us to get involved.
It's a good thought. I do recall from talking to Roger Smith about their needs. I seem to recall that he said the current facility was designed to accommodate about 60 school buses. I think they have over 200. Yeah. So it's a real safety concern at this point, at least in Roger's telling, and this is more about operations to serve students better. I like the idea of potentially incorporating some curriculum, but we can make that suggestion. It's a good one. But really wanted to call your attention to the fact that it is currently in the TIF, probably shouldn't be if it's going to come off the tax roll. So we'll have that coming up at some point. It will be important to define the area, so we'll have to, I think there is a rezoning petition that is advancing through the council and Metropolitan Development Commission currently that may be part of the contingency on whether that happens. So we'll continue to
You
monitor.
plan to use the same folks that got us into it to get us out of it?
I think it may take a little bit less in terms of assistance and analysis to get it out, because to put it in, we usually have to do, we had Jim Higgins at London Witty do the sort of financial analysis about what the base is and the calculation. I don't think that'll be necessary to take it out.
Cost us less to get out of it than
I think it should cost us less to get out. Moving on to the trades district, we have an executed letter of intent with Free GRSC at a Fishers. I'm saying that out loud in the meeting, but the next step is, of course, project agreement. Now that we have the new commission in place, I've had some communication with their likely design build contractor or development partner at Browning and with the chief operations officer at Freegee about next steps on project agreement, et cetera. I would anticipate circulating to you all a draft of that between now and the next meeting and taking some feedback. We can have some individual meetings to look at considering whether we're ready to maybe even vote on approval of that in February. If not, then it could go to March, and I think that still fits under the timeline. I would anticipate that that project agreement will incorporate some manner of license or lease for some access by Freegee to do some initial site evaluation and planning and work yet this summer. I think their projected occupancy date is in 2020. So start to move some earth and do some planning around the vacation of Plummer Street and siting the building and grading of the property. But again, I think we continue to see that as very positive. It's for Commissioner Brown's perspective, this is a property that the RDC has owned for quite some time, that we did some planning around a couple years ago and have been pursuing then implementation of that plan, which we call the Lawrence Trades District Plan, that looks to kind of harness investment in the area of skilled trades and pair that with workforce development opportunities to then bridge the potential for area residents and all of central Indiana really to look at Lawrence as the epicenter of skilled trades and a path to employment opportunities in the skilled trades in conjunction with McKenzie Career Center and other partners. This is a project that, pursuant to an RFP for disposition of the property, we now are working with the prospect that is a large-scale design, build, mechanical, and refrigeration contractor that's got a good-sized footprint, 200-plus employees currently, that would build a new headquarters that would incorporate business staff. They do in-house engineering. They do some prefabrication and would also include a training facility for their own workforce development efforts. So that's kind of the project we're pursuing now. We have a signed letter of intent with the company and are then going to be working through a project agreement that would be the operative agreement about how that project moves forward. I think that will be a near-term thing for review and comment and approval here in the next month or two.
I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Before you leave the trades, and this is kind of an add-on to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on scheduling for the Record Street extension? Have you done any work there?
Yeah, we have been I've been exploring that with a potential engineering partner about costs for design and construction of the roadway. The plan calls for there's a street that runs kind of east-west through there called Record Street, just for Commissioner Brown's benefit, that is pretty low volume, very small road, and it's actually interrupted by a residential parcel. So it doesn't go all the way through from Sellers to Franklin Road. The thought in the plan is we've actually, the Redevelopment Commission has acquired the interrupting parcel so that it can punch through the road and then enhance it so it's a positive east-west kind of flow corridor through the trades district with hopefully sidewalks and streetlights and things that are positive. And we've been working through what the scope of that project will be and how much it might cost, and looking at funding mechanisms. So it's an ongoing conversation. I think the controller's been very involved, and the mayor, in looking at what's the capacity of the TIF as a potential element of the funding of that. What's the capacity of other MVH fund and other infrastructure funds in the city to potentially fund the construction. So it's evolving. I would anticipate that.
Am I reading between the lines if I say that it's moving toward DPW?
Well, I guess in what sense? From a project evaluation standpoint, DPW's certainly been involved and will be. Yeah. I'd say it's more in the hands of the controller at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
DPW would certainly be involved as an infrastructure project. It's more about what's the cost and what's the best way to.
DPW, at this point in time, DPW doesn't have it on their list of things to do for 2019, is that?
No, that's accurate.
Thank you.
Yes. Good. And then I did want to talk a little bit about Shadeland Avenue. I've requested, yes, an aside to catch up. We're talking about this a little bit before the meeting. Another property the Redevelopment Commission owns is at 4423 Shadeland Avenue. The RDC issued a request for proposals, received one proposal for acquisition and redevelopment last year. Selected that proposal and moved forward with the project agreement, only to find that the building had some unforeseen issues related to fire suppression and roof instability that made the prospect of redeveloping the property into a service master franchise, into a new headquarters for that franchise, unworkable financially considering the purchase price for the land, which was dictated in accordance with state statute by two independent appraisals that were averaged. We rescinded the project agreement through the Redevelopment Commission late last year and are looking to maybe see if there's a way to reevaluate the numbers for redevelopment. We can, I think, continue to think that Service Master franchise could be a good user for that property. They currently have 45 employees and have exhibited some growth and had some really positive plans for cleaning that building up and putting it back to good use. So we'll be working through that. Meanwhile, I wanted to say we've got, I think, some good interest from a reputable multifamily developer in a site that the RDC does not own that is along Ferris, just east of Shadeland Avenue, for a multifamily housing project that would come in and out off of Shadeland and potentially incorporate some single-family lots along Ferris Street that may be developed in conjunction with Habitat for Humanity. That's done, I think, Chris, 10 houses in Lawrence in the last 2-3 years. And has high demand for this area because the schools are attractive and it's a good community to live in. So we see some opportunity for some housing there. And I'll be meeting I have a meeting scheduled Thursday morning with the commissioner for that district. It's the counselor, I should say. That's Councilor Giles and President Chavis of the council about what their thoughts about the corridor are and what kind of projects they would support and like to see, so that we're working in parallel with them and with their support about that project. That would likely be a 4% low-income housing tax credit project it's currently owned by the Cato family on that property, which would require a certain level of municipal involvement. There's usually there's a bond component to those that is then serviced by the developer. So something to evaluate in terms of support and potential for the area. So that's a conversation that we've been having with an interested party there, and we hope will progress, and we'll check in with the council, and as that flushes out, be in communication with you all about what that project would be and what your interest and support would be. Any questions about that?
Not at this time.
Okay. Yes, there will be plenty of opportunity for it now. This is early on. And then I think that sort of about does it for the staff report. I know that Chris Barnett of the Lawrence Community Development Corporation had asked for some time to, I would imagine, introduce himself to our new commissioner, and also make a small presentation on behalf of the CDC. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Cam. Commissioner Brown, good to meet you in person. For the record, not that anybody here doesn't know, I'm Chris Barnett, Executive Director of the Lawrence Community Development Corporation. I'm here to publicly acknowledge the good work of the Lawrence Redevelopment Commission and to thank its present and immediately past members. Each year, the CDC presents a Community Builder Award in recognition of efforts to build a better Lawrence community through volunteer or professional engagement. We also present a Positive Development Award to the developer of a significant commercial or residential development that has contributed to the positive image and momentum of the Lawrence community. This year, I have the honor to present a combined award. The Lawrence Redevelopment Commission is a volunteer-appointed body with professional staff support, considerable professional staff support, I might add, that has worked with the CDC on residential properties in need of redevelopment over the past several years, especially through the statewide elimination program, which we have just concluded our participation in. For these efforts, we recognize the Redevelopment Commission as community builder, supporting the CDC in its efforts to build homeownership in Lawrence for low to moderate income families. The RDC is also a developer. We heard Cam talk about the development efforts on property that the Redevelopment Commission has long owned. Through its efforts, the city has obtained the Brownfields grant, and this has assisted in redevelopment of multiple vacant industrial sites with new occupants who are bringing well-paying jobs to the city. And I would add to what Cam said, these are well-paying jobs that don't necessarily require a college degree, but some level of technical skill. That feeds back to our efforts to provide low to moderate income homeownership opportunities in Lawrence, because people who make living wages still can't afford to live at Geist, but yet want the advantage of living in the city of Lawrence. And we help to provide that opportunity with your assistance. The RDC has the Trades District coming, and I wrote this before I came over here and is close to announcing, but has now announced, the coming of yet another headquarters operation to the city of Lawrence. So for the industrial redevelopment efforts, we recognize the Redevelopment Commission for its positive developments that contribute to the positive image and forward momentum of Lawrence. On a personal level, I'm grateful for the continuing partnership between the Redevelopment Commission and the CDC, and especially for a warm relationship with the two prior presidents. And I hope that that will continue with the newest president. We recognize that the law grants us special privileges in redevelopment in terms of receiving property and grants from the Redevelopment Commission, and we're mindful of our obligation to help the Commission advance its efforts to improve the commercial and residential areas of Lawrence. And so, those aren't just words. I've got something for the office upstairs. Bruce was able to attend our annual dinner, so I was able to give this to him, and then I had to take it back. This is our official award, which I present to all of you on the because you have all earned this working together. Judging from the fact that you know the crowd well and that it's never very large, I feel as if maybe your efforts go a little unrecognized sometimes. And so it was my great pleasure to stand in front of a room full of Lawrence leaders and to present this to Bruce on behalf of the commission. But now I want to stand before you and say thank you and present it to you. And I hope Mary Jo can find a place for it upstairs in the office.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
There you go.
Thank you to Bruce. I'm glad you were able to attend and accept the award the first time. That's great. I had a conflict and was unable to attend, but thank you, Chris.
You did provide a table full of people to applaud and recognize, so thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Is there any other business to come before the commission?
I guess I'd like to address the meeting schedule, the tentative meeting schedule. I have a conflict on the next meeting on February 26th. I cannot be here. I'm not really asking for the meeting to be moved. I just wanted to state that I couldn't be here, and
I'd like to ask for the meeting to be moved to the preceding Tuesday if possible.
Commissioner Clifford, what date is that?
That
19th?
is the 19th.
I won't be here.
Oh, we have a conflict. Hey, this is going to get interesting. When are you gone, actually? Right.
Friday whatever that Friday that precedes the 26th, the 23rd.
The 22nd, yeah, through,
The end of the week.
oh, the whole week?
Yeah.
Is there any time available on any other day in the preceding week? Bruce, are you here, or are you gone the whole week?
I'm here from the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd.
Okay. So am I. Are you here? At that 21st, 22nd? Oh, not the 22nd, sorry, 20th. Okay.
I'm available.
So throwing that out to everyone else, can we meet on the 20th or 21st? Can you check that room? Room availability? Okay, before we publish, thank you. Let us know.
So that would be Thursday, the,
Yeah, either that Wednesday or Thursday, the preceding Wednesday or Thursday.
okay. Got it.
Dick, how are you on?
Yeah, no, that would be fine with me. I was going to note that that Tuesday, March 26th date is in the midst of Lawrence Township.
March or February?
Yeah, I was moving on to the next month.
Oh, you're moving
March.
on.
Yeah, the February one, 21st works
Okay.
good for me.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Now we're going to move to March.
First,
I was just going to note, do you have something you want to say
yeah,
about February?
as to February, depending on time, Thursday is better for me than Wednesday.
Me as well.
Okay.
That's good. Thursday it is. Doesn't matter to me.
So we'll see an email.
I was just going to note that the March 26th date actually falls in the midst of Lawrence Township spring break, so I'm not sure if that affects anyone other than me, but I know I will be out of town that week.
That's the March date.
Yeah.
Last week of March.
I would suggest we just leave it on February 26th, and if I can call in, I will. I mean, it seemed to work for some others that have done it in the past. but-
Right.
I can let IT know.
Okay.
and Set up the.
Let's do that. Pam, it's, one of the reasons that we would have a concern with meeting then is that if you do reviews
Right.
of the plan ahead of time,
Yes.
and you want some action to be taken at that meeting, speaking as one commissioner, I would like Brian to be here.
Right.
So that's the,
No, I think you raise a good point, and if we're targeting that as a potential date for that approval, yeah, I think, was there a conflict with the Thursday, the 21st?
I can't be here that day.
Oh, you can, okay.
February or March?
February.
Okay.
February, okay,
Sorry.
okay. Yep. Well,
Commissioner Clifford, would a phone call suffice, or you want Brian to be here?
For my, again, speaking as one commissioner, I want Brian here. It's too kludgy to depend on the phone call.
Yeah, I think David can.
Dominican Republic is,
David can confirm. I think if Brian were to join us by phone, as Commissioner Sullivan did previously, that would be fine. I don't think he could vote.
it would be
So,
fine, it's just that,
well,
it would really be taking a chance.
yes, and I mean, to your point, I don't think you would be able to vote on anything. So, hence your concern, I believe. So, how about this? If we kept it on the 26th, we could potentially plan to then vote on approval in March.
March.
What about moving it to then following to March 2nd, or whatever that Tuesday, the first Tuesday of March is? Since the week prior doesn't seem to work.
Oh, sure, that's Tuesday, March 5th, Cinco de Mayo,
March 5th.
which, oh yeah, March. I can do March.
Pardon me?
I can do March 5th.
I can't do March 5th.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's the dominoes.
Well, I'm glad we're trying to work this out now.
Yeah, me too.
What about the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th? Obviously not the 5th, but
Any other day that week is fine for me. It's the one day.
That's Monday, the 4th is fine.
I can do Monday.
Is everybody okay with
That'll
Monday?
be the council meeting?
Oh, that's right.
Well, I mean, as long as
Although,
we're out.
they meet at
I guess that's
6:30.
later, so as long as we're, yeah.
Yeah. But the council meeting's not till 6:30.
6:30.
We kept it at 4.
Yeah, let's do, if we can, let's do Monday, the 4th,
So February's gonna move to March the 4th.
March 4th. Well, could you send us a note after you check the room availability to make sure that we're not running into some other special committee or,
Right.
yeah, thanks. Let us know. Thanks.
And then what is March 19th our regular meeting day?
I think it's March
March
26th.
26th.
The
And
26th.
it's during spring break.
And that's spring break. Is everyone okay with any spring breakers? Besides
me.
Commissioner Friedge?
I think that'll work.
I'm good. I'm good for the 26th.
All right, is there any other business for the
April,
commission? You want to go with April?
if you want. Just,
Might as well.
I won't be here on April 30th.
On April 25th.
It's April 23rd.
The 23rd's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm fine.
All right, any other business? Mr. Stearns, can you give us a breakdown on I saw we got some Lilly grant money, Lawrence.
Good.
Any updates on that?
Good point. And did we, I don't recall if we knew in time prior to the meeting in December, but just in case we didn't, of course, we had talked about the city of Lawrence applying for Lilly, an arts grant through the Lilly Endowment. We were successful. I think our total grant ask was a little north of $8 million, but the city was awarded $5.8 million, which is still a very significant amount of funding to be able to implement the cultural campus concept here on Fort Harrison, involving the area around the Stewart Center and the former theater. We are meeting tomorrow to talk about how we will roll that out in terms of a project. I don't know that we have a sort of a grant agreement with the endowment yet, but we anticipate that will happen. David's saying no. We don't think we do. But we anticipate that we will, and then we will be working in conjunction with Arts for Lawrence to deliver the project. So we've got, I think, biweekly meetings about how that will roll out, and look forward to the addition of some new and exciting public spaces here on the fort dedicated to arts for the citizens of Lawrence.
Is that 5.8, do you know any of the basics on it? How many years it's payable over?
I don't. I think the grant period and through the application was contemplated to be 5 years. So I think we're approaching it as a 5-year project. That being the deadline for sort of spend down, so to speak. But the use is, I think, less specific than the application was specific in terms of what they were looking for in terms of criteria. The use here, it will fund various things related to some infrastructure work, some programming, some improvement of public facilities. So the funding will be used for a variety of purposes to accomplish the cultural campus mission. So pretty broad in that regard.
My last question, who was our grant writer for that?
It was a sort of a team effort, I think, led by Judy Byron and Arts for Lawrence, and her board. And we did have some good input from some area partners. Schneider Engineering participated. Context Design, who is set to take up residence here on the fort soon. It's a landscape architecture firm, was contributed to that. Ed Watson at Midwest Studios produced the video that was part of the application that was very well done. So it was a really good kind of collection of people pulling toward it. And I think a lot of the writing, Judy and Bruce Hugon, her board president, did and vetted through the group. So there wasn't a consultant hired to write it. It was a pretty organic effort. Jerry.
You might want to make a note that at the next council meeting, Judy Byron will be making a presentation to the council on what the money will be used for. Yeah. So she'll provide you guys will have armed her by then.
Because there was some, the overall proposal was projected to be a little north of $8 million. So with 5.8, we're making some strategic decisions about what gets funded and what's a later phase. And I think I'm glad you pointed that out. I think I'd heard that the council had asked for an update, so we'll look forward to that.
Well, that's a great get, and they should be commended. I mean,
It was a good effort. I was glad to be, a little bit involved, and
A little louder.
I was
Yeah, I can.
sorry. It was a great effort, and I was glad to be just a little bit involved. But I was really encouraged by just the amount of buy-in and input from some of the community partners. It was really above and beyond Schneider and Context Design and Midwest Studios to put that much time and effort into supporting the application, and good work all around.
Any other business? All right, lastly, the RDC owes Frank Sullivan a special thank you for his dedicated service to the City of Lawrence and the Lawrence Redevelopment Commission. In the last 3 years, Mr. Sullivan consistently focused his efforts on contributing to the task at hand. His experience and thoughtful consideration often helped to determine the Commissioner's best course of action. His counsel will be missed. A letter is being prepared thanking Mr. Sullivan for his valuable service. We are adjourned.
thank you.
Do we have to make a motion or no?